sure I went, when I was a kid, I'm sure I was thinking along the lines of elephant trainer. I wanted to do something in a stable because I loved horses. But then I realized like how much elephants and horses poo, and I'd be responsible for cleaning it up. And then there was actually very long time when I thought I was going to go into medicine, actually neurosurgery, in fact. And I think in part because I love the idea of how you can actually use your hands to heal. And especially if the brain is such a fascinating part of the body that, I mean, look, I'm the youngest of 10, and grew up in a fairly, it was a little chaotic, in a loving way, in a good way, household, but there was never really enough. I mean, I never felt like we were denied anything, but the picture was keenly aware. It's like, oh, not everybody, lives like this. But I also knew, because in particular of my mom, that we were this home that was always open to everyone who needed it. And so I grew up with a bunch of other extra siblings that happened to be in our home because they needed a place to stay. And whether it was for a short time or a long time or whatever, it didn't matter. It was just like, that's how you help, whoever's in need. So that wasn't, it was just like what you do as another human being. But I really but again, I also grew up pretty poor in this community and knew, whether it was through the media or, just by looking around, that this was not the place I wanted to stay. I've watched it burn down throughout the years of much financial disinvestment. The Bronx did in fact burn. I watched a lot of it. I saw the impact, of that financial disinvestment, which I think kind of created a social disinvestment in a lot of ways, whereas people, if they could afford to leave the community, they did. And those of us who couldn't were stuck here. And we were poster child for urban blight, and I just wanted to leave. I watched my brother, or I did, thank God I didn't watch it, but my brother was killed when I was a little kid, because of the drug wars that were happening here. I lost a lot of friends and family, after their buildings burned down, so no longer saw them, and many did not die in them, thank God. But, I saw that, so this was not the place I wanted to stay in. So I used education to get out, went away to college, got into graduate school, and was really happy to kind of pursue my dream or one of my dreams of actually working in the film industry, sort of like a backhanded way, because I was going to write the Great American Novel, turn it into the Great American Screenplay, direct and play a small but significant role in it. That was my plan. And moved back home only because I was broke and needed a cheap place to stay, and had to create like a sense within myself of why I was even here. And so for the longest time, for a couple of years, in fact, I didn't do anything, except like I lived on 2 blocks up from here, the subway was there, and that was all I knew. I mean, I would like get out of the neighborhood as quickly as possible, and I ended up getting, and I was fine with that because it was just like I was biding my time until I could leave. I got sucked in only because I got to know of the arts community here in the South Bronx, and got involved with this organization working in the arts, but then realized that, frankly, not all the arts in the world wasn't going to help. We already handled a huge amount of the city's waste infrastructure. They wanted to open us up to more, and when I saw that, that's when I realized I could pretend I don't see this, or I could be a part of the move that's trying to work to help the city create a much more sustainable solid waste management plan. But ultimately, even that, and I was excited about that, but that wasn't enough to kind of keep me here. What really kept me here was actually being, not just asking the question, what are we fighting against, but what are we actually fighting for? Like, what kind of community do we want to be in? What does it look like? What does it smell like? What can you do in it? Those were the really important questions that I'd ask myself. And I think being an artist helped me see that. And so I first started working in the environmental field and worked around actually transforming a dump into a park, because folks in the community had talked a lot about how there wasn't a place for their kids to go to and play and feel safe in, nor was it beautiful. So doing that, and now it's this national award-winning park right down on the waterfront on the Bronx River. I started one of the country's first and probably still most successful green-collar training and placement systems, where we train people in the fields of ecological restoration, so that they could have both a personal as well as a financial stake in improving the environment. And they really worked hard on creating new opportunities for there to be jobs, within the urban forestry, waterfront restoration, park stewardship, green roof installation, brownfield remediation. And so we were really excited that they had, while I was running it, more than 85% success rate after 3 years of completing our program, which meant that they were employed, gainfully, within those fields. Super exciting. I wrote a proposal that brought about $50 million worth of greenway infrastructure into the South Bronx, which was a huge undertaking, which helped to calm traffic, which helped to actually create more greenery within the local community as well, attract stormwater, all those type of things that really helped made it a much better, safer place for the community to be, and a little easier to breathe in. I've since kind of parlayed that work in urban revitalization, specifically not just to the environment, because I realize that it's our communities. The reasons why people want to leave our communities and feel like, this isn't a neighborhood I can stay in, is because it doesn't have the things that actually meet all of your creature comforts as a human being, quite frankly. And we're still considered like this utterly poor place. But and I'm not the only kid that went to PS 48 right around the corner that did okay for herself. But I am one of the few that's still here. Why? Because we were taught when we were little to measure success by how far we get away from communities like this. So regardless of the fact that there's a award-winning park here, that there's a greenway, that there's good things happening in the neighborhood, you still didn't have a good place to shop for your food. You didn't have great places to hang out with your friends or even just shop. So that's what we're working on through our real estate developments. We're really trying to create the kind of neighborhood that people feel like they don't have to move out of their neighborhood to live in a better one. And that means creating economic developments that actually provide people with that feeling of, what, I can contribute something. I can be that aspirational role model to others in my community, to let them know that, yes, you can be, from a community like this and be great in your own community, that you don't have to leave it and take your best fruits and take them someplace else. It didn't take long for me to realize that people were not going to be rallying really hard behind the idea of another fight and another battle, because being from a poor community, we're used to losing. We're taught that you will lose if you stay here. We made it so personal. Do you know why you're having to take your kid to the emergency room so often? And then it was just well, I know that the air is polluted. Yeah, because I've heard that. And it's yeah, it is. But, did you know that the city's planning on bringing more, into the community? And then it was just but wait a second. It's they felt already demoralized, but then it was just wait a second, enough is enough. And so to quote Fannie Lou Hamer, I think people were just sick and tired of being sick and tired. But it really took a lot for me to kind of just survey the lay of the land and just be what does this person want that's in line with what I want? It wasn't personal. I was always pleasantly surprised at how often, when you had the attitude of no one is my enemy, how much more you can get accomplished. takes is a couple of really, concerned citizens to move anything. Same thing here. And what's beautiful about that is that, as long as you show up, I don't care if it's with, 10 people or 10,000, folks are going to take notice. And, especially in places like this where folks are not used to anybody stepping up, you'll see that happen. It's super exciting. So in both the work that I did on the environmental side, but now, especially as we're working, to bring real economic developments and real estate developments to the local community, just having people that you can really get direct feedback and input from about what these projects might mean, to people, what potential projects could mean to people, has been, an extraordinary gift, I think, for us to be able to have. And it's super exciting that they will come right out and say, this is how this makes me feel. This is how I feel like this is going to support me or not. And being able to take that in. Just like people have got to see things change. And if they don't, I don't care if it's like planting a tree or actually doing a coffee shop or some kind of local economic development so people can, or a tech social enterprise. I mean, those type of things, especially in communities like this, create a new sense of like possibility. And if we don't have it, if we're not continuously providing that, people lose hope and then they leave. And so when we did have folks who were like, wait, I'm here because I feel invested in this community and its future, and then if folks feel like they're not getting anything out of it, after a while they go. So we build it and then they'll stay. So I've got great mentors in there, and actually, interestingly enough, some of them are the ones that essentially, when I first started this work, were just like, maybe you might want to kind of not so much circle the wagons around like your ideas and your work, but just be prepared for the fact that because you're doing something different, there might be some folks within your circle who are not happy with it. And I was just like, no, that's not true. We're all in this together. And she was right. But, I am not one of those people who are just like, I don't want to be a role model. I am happy to be a role model because I feel like I do have something to offer. I want people to learn from my mistakes so that they don't have to make the same ones. They should make plenty of mistakes, but different ones. And, if I could, advise in any way, I'd be delighted to. I'm super excited about the young people, from around the country and actually around the world, even if it's just like a little moment that I have with them, and sometimes much more longer term interactions. I really feel like I get as much out of being able to connect with folks as they have connecting with me. It just reminds me, it's like, oh, this is why I do this. Really hard. How about we do a bake sale and then take that money and give it to someone who's actually, to an organization that really works toward ending hunger. And so it was like, okay, you can do that. And so the food bank, which is right around here, like New York City Food Bank, they actually raised $244, and they were so excited to find out that that their contribution will actually help feed like 1,000 people.
Oh my god!
Because of the way that they work it through donations, and then they get their costs covered, and then they get the food out there. It was amazing what they did, and these little girls were like, "We did that? Yes, you did." My TED Talk today would be about how do we retain talent in low-status communities instead of hemorrhaging it. We exacerbate brain drain in America's low-status communities. People like to think brain drain only happens in India and China and places like that. No, it happens right here in American low-status communities. And that's why, America's poorest communities don't get any less poor except when they're gentrified. And why is that? Like, that kind of is just, it's so easy to me, like why it happens. Essentially we make it so that the talent that's born in these communities see no value in it. It's why we know that gentrification doesn't just happen when white people and the doggy daycare start moving in. It happens when we tell our young people that there's no real value in these communities, that you need to measure success by how far you get away from them, and that, and especially people that do own property, sell it early and cheap so that somebody else can come here and make all sorts of money in these communities. That it is not development that supports us. It is not development that is by us. And yet, we're the first ones, we're not we, but our, I guess, social justice folks are some of the first ones to complain about gentrification when we have not prepared people to frankly do the development that's going to expand our own horizons in our own communities. When we were trying to launch this coffee shop, point blank, I ran out of money, to pay the contractors and all this stuff, and it was just like, because everything costs more. And there was a local family who we knew, but just because, they were some of the ones that gave us such feedback about the things they wanted to see in the neighborhood, and we're so happy that we were doing this kind of stuff. And I just kind of put it out there. It's like, I got to figure out like where to find money so that we can finish doing this thing. And they were like, talked amongst themselves and decided that they would want to invest in us. And I was like, wow. And they, to this day, feel like I gave them the opportunity, to be a part of something great. And I was like, well, no, you just gave me the opportunity to do this. But they were like, yes, that's the point. Like, this is what you gave, us. And so I was like, oh, now if we could take that kind of feeling, like they were just like, we are being a part of the solution for our own problems. We are a part of our own recovery here in our communities. And I was like, that kind of feeling and that the way they felt so powerful that they were actually, again, they were putting a hand out to they were literally putting a hand out to their community, not a handout to their community. And they felt like they were a part of the solution. And then I felt like, wow, imagine that we're going to be able to do that, to a lot more people. Whether they're literally investing their dollars or even just investing like their spirit, back into their own community. That's what we're trying to do. What we're going to try to do is to create kind of a network of the Bronx diaspora, because frankly, I would love, this neighborhood that we're in is called Hunts Point. I would love for there to be a Hunts Point homecoming. If we could create those kind of opportunities for them to come back home. That's what I'm really interested in seeing happen. Yes, I often say that I have 5 jobs because each one of the enterprises that I'm involved with constitutes, for a normal person, a real job. So, as a real estate developer, we've got a couple of projects on the hopper right now. One was developing this coffee shop that they're sitting in front of, Boogie Down Cafe, and it really started as a way to kind of help people see, because as a need that was expressed to us, that there weren't nice places to hang out, and there's like a dearth of good coffee in the neighborhood as well. So it was like a tiny little spot, what we could afford to build. But we have another local family that invested in it because they also believed, in the idea of actually having a locally owned operation within our community, because there's so few of them. We also co-founded a tech social enterprise called Startup Box that is literally urban onshoring tech jobs into communities like this, specifically to provide that sort of entry-level foundation into the tech industry so that folks can actually have a career ladder to build upon. We just, a few years ago, we acquired a former rail station, this little historic gem by this architect named Cass Gilbert, and we recently partnered with a financing partner we're going to be working to hopefully attract like a food hub operator, those really great food hubs that have like different types of restaurants in them, and so really support local chefs as well. And then we're looking at how do we take this vision of economic diversity through a larger development into another spot within the local community. But I think one of the things I like people to know about me is that I say what I mean and I mean what I say. And I'm very open to criticism. Like, I'm happy to talk about it. And at the same, and I'm deeply faithful, very strong faith in God. How do I use my life as a way to support others? And I want desperately for people to feel as though they're loved. They actually can and have the ability to make a wonderful contribution to this world and make it a better place for themselves and others. And that we can do that by actually being in communion with each other. That's why building places within the community allow folks to sort of be a part of that. Again, I don't care if they know me. I really don't. I'm much more excited that they get to know themselves and their community in this way. And I'm the least important part of that equation.